So, but it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. And I want to begin our conversation with what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years or so, going through the pandemic. How did you get through the pandemic and how did it change you?
Well, there is a lot there. First of all, for me, I think it was interesting because I already worked remotely. I've worked remotely for about 8 years. But what happened was a few good things and a few bad things. The good thing is, like, everybody else became remote. So it kind of evened the playing field with people that I worked with. I didn't feel as left out in meetings and some of the work like that. But what also happened was it sucked out all of the extra stuff that was my human connection time in real life. So even just like somebody at the checkout counter at the grocery store having a mask over their face, you don't get that smile or that affirmation like you're being seen and there's just human connection and stuff. And all of the things that I would do that was outside of the house away from the computer were canceled. So I really struggled to kind of find a balance of real life connection and human interaction. So I auditioned for some game show companies. First, virtually out of a company out of California called Grin Events. And I started hosting virtual game shows for big California companies like Facebook, Google, Uber, all kinds of huge companies out there. Had a ton of fun doing that. And then as soon as I was able to get vaccinated, I started doing it here in Kansas City. There's a place called Game Show Battle Rooms in Overland
Yeah.
Park.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And
I've been to it.
yeah. Oh, awesome. I auditioned and got a job hosting there too. And I started doing that for fun. And I decided to launch a podcast and start writing a book as so I had two COVID babies there with Playful Humans. And Playful Humans is all about rediscovering the power of play for adults to kind of avoid burnout and midlife crisis stuff and reconnect with what brings you joy and lower stress. So many people are just like stressed to the max.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those types of people that, like, when I'm trying to solve a problem for myself, I go and I read like the top 30 books on joy, happiness, fulfillment, fun, play, all that kind of stuff. So, and I've interviewed now over 150 people for the Playful Humans podcast of
Cool.
play experts, psychologists, people that play for a living, magicians, jugglers, famous actors, and reality show contestants and stuff like that. Anybody that I think is kind of living the life of their dreams and following their passions and purpose, and trying to collect all of that knowledge for myself and then share it with other people. And I'm distilling that into a book now too. So it's been a long 3 years, but
Yeah.
basically I leaned into, I'm not going to sit back and just be miserable here. I'm going to go after it and see if I can find a way to be happy and playful.
Good for you. That's the way to do it. It's interesting. I was thinking about that kind of job acting thing. In my 20s, I had real long hair and I was kind of in a career like transition point. And I interviewed for a job and it was called the Mafia Tour and it was
Yeah, I
bus.
know that.
Okay, I was going to do that. And there was going to be like a Tommy gun fight at one point. You see the St. Valentine Massacre. I think it started on
At
Ward
Union
Parkway,
Station. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you got to see Pendergast's French villa, and then all of the spots. And I don't know what happened. I think I had to get my license, my CDL or something, and I didn't have
Oh,
it.
to drive the bus or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it didn't work, but that kind of thing just seemed cool. But I still remember all the stats. Like we have the second most fountains behind Rome. We invented the Happy Nail. Pizza Hut started here. Like all of this stuff about Kansas City, I didn't realize. So it was kind of a cool little venture to get in there. But anyways, no, that's great. And I think that was the idea of the pandemic is it had a monopoly on all of us, and we had to figure out what to do. Why not go in
Right.
there and say, look, look for opportunities and keep your mind fresh and fluid.
Yeah, and I think food was my downfall. That was my Achilles heel. I was able to kind of work out and stuff, and lucky enough to have equipment in my house or just go for walks and runs outside and things. Bought a bicycle, but man, the stress for me manifested in Minsky's pizza and a lot of like ice cream and soda.
That's fine. That's a good vice to have. Minsky's is the best. So what I want to do is I want to get a better handle on what you do for a living. So I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day, and one of the little ones looks up and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I love this because my uncle was explaining it to my brother-in-law was explaining this to my little niece, and he said Mike is so good at playing that people pay him to kind of like be their best friend and play for a living. And I love that explanation
Yeah.
because I love playing with Lego, and I got Lego Serious Play certified so that I can be an instructor and facilitate team building and training events with Lego for adults. We've already mentioned the game shows and podcasts and other things, but I think there for me, there's two sides of that coin. One is just connecting with other people, hosting events, anything to be on a microphone, a video, a YouTube channel, anything like that. I love creating stuff. The other side of it is sharing my knowledge. So I consider myself like a collector of best practices. And I don't know if third graders would know what that is, but I try to figure out the best ways to do things or ways to help other people and then share that knowledge with other people.
What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
This is a great story because I wanted to be on the radio. Here in Kansas City, we have a thing called Exchange City. And in fifth grade, you get to go and pretend to have a job. And
Yeah.
I was the radio station manager at Exchange City, and I always wanted to be on the radio. And I got to do that. I worked my way up to having my own show on Mix 93.3 and was a top 40 DJ. And I DJ'd in bars and clubs, get to open for Billy Idol and Frankie Valli and stuff. And the funny thing is third graders are kind of crap at picking careers, but
Right.
I did have the hints of that, right? There's some stats out there now that says kids or young adults graduating college now will have about 9 different jobs throughout the rest of their life. 7 of them have not been invented yet.
Wow.
So, when I think you and I are about the same age, when we were in middle school, podcasting wasn't a thing.
Oh,
Right. So I think that is amazing. But I think those hints of the radio is what I liked was the entertainment factor, the sense of humor, writing jokes, making people laugh, connecting with other people. What I didn't realize is that radio is really sitting in a room by yourself behind a computer all day, and you tell the funniest joke you've ever thought of and nobody laughs. Maybe one red
right.
light blinks in the corner of your eye and somebody called in and was like, that one was funny, and you're like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
um and then the pay and hours were also terrible.
Bad.
So when you're single in your 20s and working 7 to midnight, it's really hard to go on a date.
Right.
Like I can do 4:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning.
That
It's not great.
it almost sounds like a service call. Like, when are you going to be at the house between this
Yeah.
weird time and this weird time? It's like, come on, just tell me when you're going to be at the house. You know, I remember when I was in middle school, or maybe it was in high school, there was a dude that came in and it was career day, and he put a period and a 0.000000736. And he turned around and he said, "What do you think that is right there?" We're all looking at this astronomically small number. And he said, "That's the chance that any of you in this room will become a professional athlete." And we were like, whoa. And then he went on to say, you're going to change. I think he said we were going to change careers 10 to 15 times,
Yeah.
and we're all sitting there like, what do you mean? We just want to get a job. We want to do what we love. So yeah, that's interesting. I remember my big dream when I was growing up. I love sports and I got into sports broadcasting. I always wanted to walk out with the broadcasters out of Kauffman Stadium. They're in that back area. And I did get an internship at 61 Country, and being in that building, because KY was the thing.
Yeah.
And I used to have to go get food from the Hereford House during commercial breaks because we ran segments. So Steve Rinko and Al Fitzmaurice were the on air, and I was like, I'm around
So
baseball
fun, yeah.
players. I got to talk to them. Marty Wall and Skid Row and all those guys were crawling around, and I maybe got to eat that food I went and got at the Hereford House, but it was still worth it because I got to
Yeah.
see him. I got to soak it all in. I got to go in the broadcast booth during the game because we had time. So yeah,
Yeah.
those days were fun.
Me too. I got to work for the Chiefs radio network and
Yeah,
go on field and do outside the stadium promotions and stuff for a few years, and all the concerts and everything, meeting people
yeah,
backstage. I got to drive REO Speedwagon around Kansas City to sing the national anthem at Royal Stadium, and then over to their concert and the radio stations and stuff, and hang out with
that's
them all
cool.
day. And it was a good time, but you were definitely being paid in things other than money.
Yes,
Mostly like free Chipotle burritos
that's
and 2 for 1 coupons to other things.
yeah, it's a hard row, man. And then when you run into a lot of egos, you're like, wait, is this along with the pay? Is this really what this is? Yeah. So you gotta have to kind of evaluate what you want to do. Um, so let me ask you this. Did you grow up in Kansas City? Are you originally from
Yeah,
here? Okay, all right.
yeah.
So you're born and bred. So who's been a hero for you in your life? Who's been an inspiration?
Oh man, I love this question. My first answer is my grandma Lynn. She passed away this year at 93. And she is the one that I credit with my personal brand. I call creative nerdery. That's just my own term that my uncle came up with when we were over at grandma's house. And we would go into her back room, and she had like toy instruments and different like wigs or funny scarves and things, and we'd come out and then put on a show for our parents in the living room, and then go in the back and start messing around. And she always had cool technology and stuff too. So I remember recording radio shows on cassette players, or typing stories on her electric typewriter and then computer and stuff. And she's the one that introduced me to Monty Python and Dave Barry, the comedy writer, and Mr. Bean, and my kind of whole sense of humor. Anything that's like smart and silly is what I loved about her, and that's what I consider creative nerdery, is people like Steve Martin that can be smart and silly at the same
Yeah.
time. For me, are the ones that I just love. So, for me personally, it was Grandma Lynn. When I look larger, it's people like Steve Martin, the Bare Naked Ladies, Mythbusters, people like that can be smart and fun at the same time.
Who's a dream interview for you? Have you had it yet, or who would be the one that you would want?
Ooh, I've had a couple of fun ones. I think a dream interview. Um, Steve Martin's definitely on the list. Seth Godin, I've had the chance to meet and work with a couple of times, but he's a very famous marketer, content creator. He's written dozens of books and a blog for like 13 years now. But I would love to have him on one of my shows and just ask him a few of my personal questions that I've had.
So my wife's best friend, her mom passed about a year ago, and we went to the funeral, and there was somebody there that was a part of the family entourage, and he starts playing this song, and we're looking around, and instantly you know when someone's a pro, and I'm like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? He was a professional bluegrass guy, really known well. So we strike it up after, after the funeral, and we start talking. I always, his name always escapes me, but anyways, he interviewed Steve Martin because Steve Martin's a big banjo
Yeah,
bluegrass dude.
yeah.
So he was telling me about it. It was really cool. He was like, he just couldn't, like, he had to pinch himself the whole time. Like, he was like, I'm talking to Steve Martin. I got to be cool. I got to like keep it together because, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, Steve Martin, dude, I mean, if you look at him, he's a writer. He's written all kinds of
Yeah.
wonderful books, movies, comedy. He's a musician. I mean, this guy is like the ultimate. I mean, they just don't make movies like LA Story anymore. It's not going to happen.
No, yeah, and he wrote that book and screenplay and stuff is amazing. His book Born Standing Up is one of my favorites too. You
Yeah.
see his story and how he created those characters and stuff, and that's what I really love. I appreciate people that have some depth to them, because I think if you only see Steve Martin in movies, you might think he's just the funny arrow through the head, stand-up comedian or silly actor, but man, he wrote a whole chapter in one of his books that he did not use a period. He wrote a short, like
Oh
short
wow.
story about a period shortage in the English language. And so the only period was at the last, after the last word of this whole chapter of the book. And he kept coming up with funny and interesting, like grammatical ways to end in a question or an exclamation point or colons and lists and other things. And it was just really, really funny. But you're like, that takes intelligence too. The Bare Naked Ladies, I think people think are silly, and they wrote that, monkey song, or 1 week postcards, with chimpanzees, and
Yeah.
the Big Bang Theory. But the Big Bang Theory is scientifically accurate, or at least it was at the time they wrote it, like
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so they can do really cool, interesting things with their music. They're that
Yeah.
good.
You know, I went this summer. It was an anniversary. My wife and I honeymooned in Manitou Springs. So we just, for the hell of it, they had DVDs there. It's old school. So we picked Roxanne and we watched it. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just going through and I'm like, I can't believe how good this film was. And I'm thinking about that bar scene when he had the top 10 list where he recounted it to the guy that made fun of him. I bet you $1 million that was ad-libbed. But anyway, we get done with the movie and we're telling the owners, we're good friends with them. We watched this and they're like, oh yeah, Daryl Hannah filmed a movie up by here and we have a suite that's themed after her and it's themed after the mermaid. And there's an autograph
Yeah.
picture and all this. So anyway, Steve Martin always brings some level of like Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees, 7 degrees separation. There's always magic that follows him.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much, and I even love their new show too. Steve Martin and
Yeah,
Martin
it's
Short with the
great.
Only Murders in the Building is
Yep.
great. Yeah.
Yep. He just always does it. So, what is your motivation every day? Every day you wake up, you have motivations to do the things that you want to do, accomplish what you want to get done. What makes you every day?
Say three things on this one. Number one is kind of authenticity, being the most me that I can be. If I can get paid to be me, if I can spend the most time not wearing some sort of mask or trying to mold into somebody else's expectation, I consider that a good day. So how can I be the most me today? I think I also am a lifelong learner. So I love reading, talking to you, doing anything that I can do to gain kind of more knowledge, inspiration, and ideas to be better tomorrow. So one of my kind of life philosophies is to do the hard stuff today that makes life easier tomorrow. And it doesn't always work out that way, but certainly better than the opposite. If you make, the easy bad choices with, food, drugs, alcohol, things like that, your life only gets harder. It's harder and harder to maintain that. If you eat right, try to stay healthy, move, exercise, work, manage your stress, and do things that turn you on, make you excited to get up, then your life gets easier the next day. You look forward to it. And then number three for me is really also trying to set all of that aside and just be in the present moment. That's one of the reasons I like performing, is because when I'm on a podcast like this, or I'm on stage or on a video, you have to be focused. You can't be thinking about the laundry and your to-do list and who's worried or about who said what or any of that kind of thing. You have to just be locked in 100% and fully engaged in life. So as much time as I can spend doing that, I love that too.
I remember in high school they always used to say do the rough homework first and then the easy
Yeah.
stuff will just kind of roll. It's kind of that idea. You really got to get in and get dirty and then hopefully everything will be kind of a karmic payback, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a great book called Eat That Frog,
Yeah.
which is like, starting your day with the hardest task.
Yeah.
That's when you have the most willpower and creative energy and stuff too. But for me, it's more about the types of activities that I choose. We all have hard stuff that we have to do or don't want to do, like pay your taxes or something like that. You're like, okay, well, let me just get this out of the way. But for me, it's really about the habits that I make. If you don't choose your habits, if you lean into easy things that are about comfort, convenience, or short-term satisfaction, then it's not going to pay off in the long term. If you pick, and develop habits like exercise and smarter choices about how you spend your time and stuff, then over time that gets easier to maintain.
Yeah, for sure. Of all the things that you've done so far in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Ooh, you are making this tough today. I actually haven't had these types of questions. Usually it's all about my background and what I'm doing. This is more about me. I like this.
Yeah.
Um, I think um two things. One is, and both of them ironically are writing. So I got more than that. I'm having trouble choosing. I'm just going to lay some out here for you. You
Sure.
tell me which is most impressive.
Sure.
I wrote a book on LinkedIn that was picked up by Sandler Training, the sales training company I work for, and LinkedIn themselves.
Oh,
So
wow.
LinkedIn published it, and it did like over 80,000 copies, did mostly digital and stuff, which was great. But finishing the first book was a really tough and interesting challenge. Um, I won an award for sports writing in college at Park University here in Kansas City
Right
for
on.
best sports writing story in the whole state of Missouri
Yeah.
for that year. And at that time, I grew up dyslexic, and I was always good in math and science, but I thought I couldn't write. And I had a really good teacher that helped coach me, and that's kind of when like spell check and everything really kind of got good and stuff too. And we had people reviewing and editing, and it's like he was like, no, you hear the music and words, you're a great writer, you just need an editor. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a thing when you get to be an adult. And so
Yeah.
that was a really probably the biggest aha for me as somebody that was dyslexic. I did so bad on spelling tests that they thought I couldn't read, and stuff, and to win awards and then write a book were two really big accomplishments for me.
That,
And then I'll just throw in quitting smoking was also like one of the
oh,
hardest things
dude,
I've ever done in my life.
forget about it. I was just thinking about that today. I looked at a Marlboro thing in the Walgreens and it was like 750. It's like, are you what? What? I mean, if you had a carton of, I mean, a
I've
carton
seen
of weed,
$11 a pack at the grocery store.
are
It's
you?
crazy.
I mean, I was doing it with crap Durals for like $1.50 a pack, and I thought that was a lot.
Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned Park College. I had a radio show back in the 90s, and three of us were listening to it. Me, the host, and someone that accidentally got on. But I remember too, I won sports writing awards when I was at UMKC in the early
Hmm.
90s. And I remember, I can't remember the name of that association. I have the certificates at home. It's like
Yeah.
Missouri.
Missouri College Media Association. Yeah. MCMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good, man. We may have been in the same competition because one year, the last year I was there, my editor, John Bedoin, won first place, and I think I got second, but I won. I staggered my years there, and I was kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I wrote a letter to the Kansas City Star. That was my intro into there, and I thought that was journalism. And I'm sure the guy that was reading it was like, all right, we really need bodies in here. We're just going to take this guy on. And I had to I got pounded and then got into it. So I understand it's tough, man, when you don't know how to write or you're going through something like dyslexia, man, when you finally hit some level of Mount Everest, it's a big deal. It's a really big
Yeah.
deal.
I think it was more just the, I mean, it was a lot of work and interesting learning for me too. But really, it's just the aha that so many people, and I think these are great messages for anybody listening. Is so many people tell you you're not good at something when you're young, and you just believe them.
Yeah.
And even with what I do now in public speaking, I've done over 3,000 events. It's probably more like 5,000 different performances if you count all the game shows and podcasts and everything that I've done in my career. So people see me on stage now and they go, wow, you're such a natural up there. And you go, well, you didn't see my first one. My first one was a disaster. I was like sweating. I forgot everything I was supposed to say. I was squeezing my hands so tight that my fingers were turning white. And my teacher just passed me because she did not want to torture me again by making me do it again. Like I clearly failed. I did not accomplish the assignment at all. But she was like, we're just going to give you a C and move on
Yeah.
here, man.
That's
I don't
it.
even want you to try again.
Yeah.
And that was terrible. And I don't know why I wanted to keep doing it, but yeah, 5,000 tries later, you can get really good at things. And I write a lot now, and I'm probably better, spelling and grammatically than most people, even though that's not what I was naturally gifted at when I was younger. So hopefully a lot of people question, whether you are actually good at what people have told you.
My wife's a fifth grade teacher, and the other night she went to a comedy club, and one of the students that she had is a big time comedian now. So she went and got pulled on stage, and he really extolled the virtues. And she was with a friend that both of them taught him, and he talked about how instrumental their support was. And she was showing me last night he does this comedy skit, kind of like Between Two Ferns. And Kevin
Yeah.
Hart was on it. So he's big time. I can't remember his name,
Wow.
but those moments when teachers do say, you got it, it's a big deal, and it can all come back around. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, your fans, but ultimately you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am naturally playful. That's one of my key characteristics. I think I also try to be kind. I find it easier just to play nice with people than to try and be selfish or anything else that I get worried about. So I try not to be too worried about scarcity or other things. My dad would really love psychology, and he instilled in me some great values around abundance and just possibilities and optimism and stuff. And one of his life lessons was never let money stop you from doing what you want to do. Like, you can always find a way to make the money for whatever it is, or it's simply a trade-off. So if you want the nicest sports car in the world, you can have that. You just might have to live in a trailer to do that, or you can travel the world, but that just means you can't settle down. They're just trade-offs. They're not really choices that everybody can have. So I think it's really about deciding what you want. And I've decided that I want to be generous, and I want to spend my time with experiences, not things. And I want to, help other people have a better day, better life, and the most fun possible.
So let's go back. Let's end all of this on a good note. Let's go back to childhood, all the game shows you watched. What's the one that you wanted to be on? If you could go into a time machine and go on to one of the shows, where are you going? What are you going to win on? What host are you going to hug?
That's awesome. I feel like anybody our age is got to say Double Dare.
Oh
Mark,
man, Mark
what was his name?
Summers.
Was it Mark Summers? Yes. So I love a lot of game shows. The Press Your Luck was one of my favorites, just because of the whammies and stuff when I was a kid. And Price is Right, on a sick day from school, and you catch Price is Right at 11 o'clock, like it's a beautiful thing. So I think those would be other answers. But Double Dare, getting slimed with Mark Summers, and maybe he might be my dream interview too. I feel like it would be amazing to interview Mark Summers on a podcast.
You know, it's funny. My best friend, the godfather of my son Miles, his name is Mark Summers, and we always used to nickname him Double Dare when he'd come in the room. So that's awesome. Yeah.
I'm writing that down. I'm gonna reach out to Mark Summers and ask him to be on my show.
And when you do, send me the link, because it's going to happen. I have no doubt. Mike,
Oh.
this has been great. If anyone wants to learn more about you, listen to your podcast, delve into your world, where do they go?
Sure. There are two things: Playful Humans, playfulhumans.com. That's the name of the podcast as well. If you want more fun, flow, fulfillment in your life, you just want a cheesy dad joke of the week. What did the bra say to the hat? You go on ahead. I'm going to give these two a lift. Okay. I got one of those every time on the podcast. And then for business stuff, sales and leadership, I host the How to Succeed podcast. It's for Sandler training. You can find us at sandler.com. There's over 600 episodes of that one, and over like 3.5 million downloads and stuff. So it does very well. But if you're looking for sales and leadership, it's How to Succeed.
I ran into a sketchy guy at the Dollar Tree the other day, and he kind of booms out loud, and he's looking around. He was like, how do you find Will Smith in the snow? And I was like, oh, dude, this may be really bad. And he's like, no, it's fine. And I was like, okay, what is it? And he was like, The Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
So there you go. Mike, hopefully we run into each other here in Kansas City. This has been a joy, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything, man.
Thank you. You too. Keep going, man. This is cool.
Yes, sir. Take it easy, man.